So we come to the rise of populism, and of course we need to touch on labor unions in the Gilded Age and moving forward. Labor unions are organized groups of workers that can demand better working conditions from employers, just to put it very generally. The big picture here, the ability to bargain collectively, which was the real strength of the labor union. You don't give us, employer, the conditions that we, the workers, find acceptable. We withhold our labor. That was undermined by various corporate weapons, immigrants willing to accept lower pay, and a government seemingly in the hands of big business. So we'll unpack this over the slides to come. But, I mean, even still today, unions get undercut by people who are willing to do the work for less. So the industrial workforce expanded through migration across national borders and internal migration as well. There was a more diverse workforce. Companies could pay lower wages because, again, people were accepting work for less. There was an increase in the use of child labor. This was before labor laws were really on the books, and children could go put in a day to help support the family. And they didn't have to be in school either. Workers desiring better conditions were very easily replaced by immigrants who worked for low wages in bad conditions. It was a very, still is in a way, but it was very much a dog-eat-dog world that we're studying right now. So labor and management battled for control over wages and working conditions, with workers organizing local and national unions to confront corporate power. And this, these were running battles that are still being fought today between labor and management. Labor's greatest weapon was the strike, which put financial pressure on industrialists. So workers, if they could get organized, if they could establish these unions, they could, essentially shut down a factory. They could shut down a string of factories, make it impossible for the industrialists, the capitalists, whatever ists you want to label them as, to make a buck. They could hit them where it hurt the worst, which was the pocketbook. And this made them want to come to the table. Begrudgingly, but, they eventually did. Corporations had weapons against labor strikes. They'd hire strike breakers. They would gain court orders to stop strikes. They would bring in troops. They'd do all sorts of things. This really was not uncommon in Western countries. I know this happened from time to time. This is what I'm talking about. In Britain. And yeah, I love these cartoons. Uncle Sam. I'm sick and tired of this nonsense. Lockouts. Companies would starve strikers into submission, as they wouldn't, if they were on strike, the companies wouldn't let them on the premises. Or bring in scabs. These people would be willing to cross union lines. That's still very taboo today. You don't cross union lines if you see people picketing. You respect what they're trying to do. Yeah, that's still a term that's thrown around today, a scab. Not a nice word. So workers would sign ironclad oaths or yellow dog contracts, which banned them from unionizing. That is, I'm not a lawyer, but I've read about some of those and seen a few of those, and the legality of those types of contracts strike me as dubious, but again, not a lawyer. It's just a general impression I got from seeing some of those. So workers were blacklisted by these companies if they'd strike, and that would be denying them employment elsewhere as well. Names would be circulated in industries. Okay, don't hire Jonathan Parker for this job, wherever he may go, you know. So the middle class rarely supported working class strikes and concerns, and the formation of the middle class in America is an entire week's worth of lecture in and of itself. But just suffice it to say, they had worked hard to achieve this status. I mean, they weren't wealthy. They knew they weren't wealthy, but they certainly weren't working class anymore, and they enjoyed the freedom that brought. In 1877, the presidents of all the railroad companies agreed to reduce wages by 10%, and people very rightly started striking, and work started stopping on the railroad lines. President Hayes, this is President of the United States, Rutherford B. Hayes, sent troops in to stop workers, but over 100 of them died in weeks of violence. Workers were divided by race. They weren't together. They weren't fighting for better conditions as a unit. So like the Irish and the Chinese, for example, absolutely hated each other. And with industrialists and government opposed to them, workers' strikes were often ineffective. Again, they couldn't get together. They knew that something needed to be done, that these working conditions, this 10% decrease in wages, was not something that was tolerable to them, but they couldn't work past racial differences, linguistic differences, what have you, to come together to unify and take on these industrialists and even the United States government. So the American Federation of Labor comes along. The big picture here, the American Federation of Labor developed a winning strategy of uniting various unions of skilled white male workers and sought progress on certain pragmatic bread and butter issues. And we'll look into what those may be. Samuel Gompers in 1886 founds the American Federation of Labor. Gompers, who had no college education, proclaimed that the factory was my Harvard and my Yale. So the AFL, the American Federation of Labor, an association of self-governing national unions, uniting different labor unions. So this is a step towards finding that commonality and being in a position to take on big business and the government, focused on bread and butter issues rather than fundamental social and economic reform. Are our members getting enough to eat? Are our members being paid enough? Are they being made to work 22 hours out of 24 in every day? Can we fix it, so that they're only working 12? This is a little before the advent of the 8-hour workday still. Gompers demanded fairer shares for workers, so better wages, hours, and working conditions. One of the main objects of the American Federation of Labor is the elevation of the lowest paid worker to the standard of the highest, and in time we may secure for every person in the trade an existence worthy of human beings. So the organization, they tried to speak for all workers, but they were composed entirely of skilled workers, meaning again, jumping the gun a little bit, electricians or plumbers, I mean, not people who would go out into the dockyard and haul cargo from boats into onto docks and into shipyards, that sort of thing. The skilled labor versus unskilled labor. So the Homestead Steel Strike of 1892, so from 1881 to 1900, there were 23,000 strikes in this country with 6,610,000 people, costing business roughly $450 million. And I can't even imagine what $450 million in 1900 would be in 2026. Probably at the bare minimum in the tens of billions. It brutalizes you. You start in to be a man, but you become more and more a machine. It drags you down mentally and morally just as it does physically. I wouldn't mind it so much if it weren't for the long hours. 12 hours is too long, says a 19th century steelworker. So by 1900, labor unions were finally starting to score significant victories. You see the labor sleigh, Roach Contract Cutter, against the Northern Pacific Railroad, the Standard Oil Company, over on the left-hand side of the screen, the Civil Service. Labor Day was made a legal holiday in 1894. And is always the first Monday in September. And now you know you can thank Charles Gompers, the AFL, union workers in the Gilded Age. Industrialists would lose more money fighting unions and strikes, so it was really in their interests monetarily to meet the demands of their labor force instead of fighting them and losing all the money. The Gilded Age was an age of big business, but the age of labor hadn't really started up yet. I'm going to read this in full from former President Rutherford B. Hayes, and I apologize because you'll get through it before I do, but it just strikes me that this is a speech that could be given today, and you wouldn't need to change a word. Free government cannot long endure if property is largely in a few hands and large masses of people are unable to earn homes, education, and a support in old age. In church, it occurred to me that it is time for the public to hear that the giant evil and danger in this country, the danger which transcends all others, is the vast wealth owned or controlled by a few persons. Money is power. In Congress and state legislatures and city councils and the courts and the political conventions and the press and the pulpit and the circles of the educated and the talented, its influence is growing greater and greater. Excessive wealth in the hands of the few means extreme poverty, ignorance, vice, and wretchedness. It is the lot of the many. It is not yet time to debate about the remedy. Let the people be fully informed and convinced as to the evil. Let them earnestly seek the remedy, and it will be found. Fully to know the evil is the first step towards reaching its eradication. We are, to say the least, not yet ready for his remedy. Money is power. Money's still buying politicians. Money's still influencing elections. Money's still, if you have money, you say money can't buy happiness, but it certainly goes a long way. Anyway, this struck me as still being particularly true. Government will finally seek to remedy the problems of society in the progressive age. And it kind of does. Populism and the Election of 1892. So the emergence of the Populist Party in the 1890s represents a revolt of the common man against Gilded Age conditions as the People's Party laid out a sweeping reform agenda for the country. We believe that the powers of government should be expanded to the end that oppression, injustice, and poverty shall eventually cease in the land, says their platform. So the Democrats put up Grover Cleveland, and the Republicans the unpopular Harrison. The growing corporate power inspired activists to create the People's Party, calling for political reform and stronger governmental role in the economic system. Corruption in the government, especially with big business and government still go hand in hand in a lot of ways, led to demands for local, state, and national government reforms to change the nature of the capitalist system. So James Weaver makes his national debut in 1892 as the candidate for the Populist Party for president. Wall Street owns the country. It is no longer a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, but a government of Wall Street, by Wall Street, and for Wall Street. I don't know if it's Wall Street anymore, but certainly, there are equivalents that you all can think of. We meet in the midst of a nation brought to the verge of moral, political, and material ruin. Corruption dominates the ballot box, the legislatures, the Congress, and touches even the court system. The people are demoralized. The newspapers are subsidized or muzzled. Public opinion silenced. Small business crushed. Our homes covered with mortgages. Labor impoverished. And the land concentrating in the hands of capitalists. The urban workmen are denied the right of organization for self-protection. Imported pauperized labor beats down their wages. The fruits of the toil of millions are baldly stolen to build up colossal fortunes. From the same prolific womb of governmental injustice, we breed two classes, paupers and millionaires. Very dramatic language, very fiery language. The populists wanted silver coinage, so 16 ounces of silver, AG, would equal 1 ounce of gold, AU. They wanted a graduated income tax, government-owned railroads, and telephones. They wanted direct election of senators, which they eventually get, a one-term presidency, and allowing people to vote on congressional legislation. All these are very democratic ideas, and some of them were adopted. The Homestead Strike in 1892 at Carnegie Steel Works ended in violence and the calling in of the army. So the striking workers, after this, began supporting the populists. There were 10 dead, 60 wounded, as you can see on the upper right-hand corner of the screen. The populists were also very successful in reaching out to black farmers in the South. So that was their base, and this was the result of the election. Weaver, for a third-party candidate, at any point in our history, doesn't do badly at all. 1, 2, 3, 4 states, and 2 electoral votes from Republican and Democrat states. Not bad. So Cleveland won, but the Populist Party did surprisingly well, with 1 million votes. And 1 million votes, well, still a lot today, was like colossal in 1892, and 22 electoral votes. So old Grover takes over again, and he serves his second non-consecutive term. So Cleveland's return to the presidency was dominated by the Panic of 1893, leading to mass demonstrations, labor strikes, a renewed call for bimetallism, silver and gold, in the coinage, and a growing dissatisfaction with the government's laissez-faire, meaning hands-off, policies.